Hey, we're live, and I'm joined with a couple of guests. Today, we're going to be talking about Foundation, Season 2, and I guess more specifically, the first half of Season 2. This is a mid-season thing. We're going to go into all the things that we like about the season so far, where we think it's heading. I invited these guys here, and I'll let them introduce themselves. So the main reason I wanted to bring them in was to get some ideas of what people are thinking about where this is going, like some of the big questions it's been asking in these first few episodes. So why don't I introduce you guys, and you could give me your general thoughts on I don't know, I just heard an echo there. Did you hear that?
Sorry, it's probably me. I went and looked our stuff up on YouTube, autoplayed, and I guess I have my
All right.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Sorry about that, guys. So yeah, let's introduce each. Let's have you guys introduce yourselves and tell me what you think so far of, just general thoughts on season 2. Why don't you start, Jim?
So I'm Jim from Bald Move. We do Foundation and Podcast. That's our Foundation podcast. I feel like I should introduce Aaron as well because he's my co-host on that. But yeah, we've got that podcast over there and talk about a whole bunch of other shows. I've read the first book of the Foundation series. I feel like that's important to say. I have not read past that. So
yeah, that is one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here specifically too, because I've talked to Aaron quite a bit off camera about stuff, and he's read the whole series. We both come from that perspective. So you bring a unique perspective in that, only reading the very first book.
Yes, I can speculate a lot more about some of this stuff, which I find really fun.
Absolutely. So what about season 2 so far? What do you think?
Oh yeah, he's got to give his opinion.
Season 2 I think has been. I like season 1 a lot. There were definitely some weak parts to it. I feel like some of the action scenes were not amazing and stuff, but they always had these bigger concepts that I found really fascinating. And I think season 2 has stepped up that game and also shored up a lot of their weaknesses. So honestly, I'm enjoying season 2 even more than I did season 1.
What about you, Aaron?
Yeah, I'm with Jim. I'm his co-host on a lot of the podcasts we do. I have to echo what my co-host said here. I think season 2 is more confident. I like Jim. I liked season 1 a lot, but it was conventional wisdom to say that the Empire plot was really outstanding, and the other stuff maybe not so much, or some of the other stuff had a hard time being as compelling as the Imperial stuff. And I feel like this season they have kind of fixed all that. There is like 3 or 4 different plot lines all going across all over the galaxy, and I couldn't think of one that I'm necessarily more invested than the other. Like, I really like the new Hober Mallow. I really like the new Brother Constant and Old Polly. I think that's strong. I really like, real Harry running around with Gaal and Salvor and getting adventures with the Mentalics. I think that's really fascinating. The Imperial stuff remains fascinating. We haven't done too much stuff on Terminus that didn't involve the other people who are fascinating. So this is just a straight upgrade. I was afraid that maybe they would lean into the action, swashbuckling aspects of the show, and they definitely are doing big action scenes, but I feel like they're a little bit more tied to the plot, a little less outlandish, a little less, just there for like, oh God, we've been talking for a whole hour, we better fuck or kill something. So yeah, it's just better in every way. It's a very confident step forward type of sophomore season.
Yeah, that's a lot of what I can relate to what both of you guys are saying. And we were talking about this a little bit beforehand. For me, I'm really enjoying the season. Like, I'm surprised how much I'm enjoying it, because for those reasons that you just brought up, Aaron, about those big set pieces and that tendency to always have some sort of action sequence in every episode just to kind of, appeal to that, sensibility or whatever. Like, I realized that I'm not in that target demo. You know what I mean? Like that's just not the kind of show that I'm looking for when I go out. But at the same time, I loved Foundation, reading the books whenever I first came across those a long time ago. And I'm a nerd about sci-fi. So, I can kind of give it, I was able, the first season, I was able to overlook things and still enjoy it. Season 2 does seem a lot more consistent. And like you said, I'm kind of enjoying most of it. Like there's a couple of things that that I don't like as much as others. Like they try a lot of different things. One thing you got to say is that they take their swings, and all of those aren't going to be home runs, but at the same time, I think their average is up a lot this season. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you guys on was to get into some of the stuff they're doing this season story wise, which I think there's a lot of really promising stuff that could develop by the end of this season. So I think we could all say that we're liking season 2 a lot better. One of the things that I like about it is that there's a couple of big questions hanging over this right now, and there's a lot of like you said, they're bouncing back and forth a lot. Feels a lot smoother this time, and there's a balance that wasn't there, I think, in season 1. And there's several big questions just hanging out there that I'm pretty excited to see how they end up or whatever. So I thought we would each kind of throw out like what our biggest question or mystery, the thing that we've been thinking about is, and just sort of go from there. So Aaron, why don't you, what's the biggest thing on your mind right now as far as the big questions of the season?
Oh, she was just there on the screen, Demerzel. What's her whole deal, man? Who is she loyal to? Is she loyal to the Empire? Is she loyal to the Cleonic dynasty? Is she loyal to the current day? Is she loyal to the concept of humanity? And or is she out for robotic revenge? She's playing the long game. Crush all humans. The long con strategy. It's obvious like how much more power she has over the day in this season, like in a very real way. She just has a lot of personal power and agency over him. And it's also seemingly like it's maybe her is the person that's kind of put this crazy in the genetic dynasty idea in his head and has moved it forward, has done. And we found that just in a couple episodes before that the current dust, the previous day, essentially let her run all the affairs and was into paint and be on autopilot. So I think she has catapulted into easy, most fascinating character of this season. And when we're giving this show its laurels, we didn't talk about how beautiful it is. That's one thing that glued my ass to the seat when I was watching the first season is like, what amazing thing I'm going to see this episode. This season is the exact same. It's like I did even Demerzel's head sliced open was gorgeous and artistic and beautiful. This show, this net, like you get the rings of power that's in that conversation in terms of most beautiful show to look at, but like there's no comparison in terms of like compelling story and characters. Foundation's got it. Rings of Power, I think, struggles a bit. But Demerzel, what's her whole deal, man?
And this is a frustrating thing about having read all the books and kind of knowing the big answers, I guess. But I'm trying to think of how to say this without being spoilery at all. Okay, let's throw this to Jim. All right, so Jim, going into this, only reading the first book, there is no mention of Demerzel or any inkling of anything about her story in that book, right?
No, I was unaware of her as a character.
Right. So that's the way that most people experienced it, because in the first, in the original trilogy, there's no mention of of this character. It wasn't a thought in the plan, but basically he went back and he wrote some prequels, and that's where Demerzel is introduced. And it's in a time period right before the stuff with Harry Seldon being exiled to Terminus. It's at the beginning of season 1, right? So there, so it's like the show has this opportunity to introduce a character early, which is a big bonus, because otherwise you're retconning it in a prequel so that you can make the sequel make sense, kind of thing, right? So what's exciting about it, though, even knowing how that character, what the story happens in the bigger part of the series, is that there's a lot of ways that you could change that in the current story, so as to where, like, Aaron, you're saying that it's the most interesting character, what she's up to. Like, in a way we know what she's up to, but in another way we can't really be sure about that, right?
Yeah, because like it's clearly we've talked about. I'm not sure if Goyer came up with this, or this is the way everyone talks about it. But like the way he's kind of playing jazz with the source material. Like it's not necessary. I'm not, and I even said this in the last podcast. It won't come out until later, Thursday. But like, it's not even clear to me whether this show is going to agree with the fundamental premise of Asimov's work, because the world's changed a lot, and people have put a lot more thought into that space. And I could totally see a show that I think would be faithful to the work and adaptation having like a different conclusion. So yeah, I know you didn't see this interview, but Goyer like kind of blew me away, and all but again, I'm going to talk around this, but all but confirmed something I know you and I have talked about offline, that like I was like, God, I cannot believe this guy is just like saying this on Reddit mid season 2.
Yeah,
so,
I saw that. I saw that too.
Okay. And I'm like, but again, I don't know that it'll happen exactly like, and I haven't. You mentioned I've read the books. I read these books like 30 years ago, and the last one I read was Foundation and Earth, which is not one of the that's before he started writing the prequels that started stitching together the Foundation, the Empire, and the Robot series. So like there's a couple of those that I'm not entirely sure that I'm familiar. So you might know some things that I don't know, but yeah, is what I'm getting at. I don't know that I've read. I've read 5 Foundation books. Is not all? That's not all of them, though, right?
There's
There are at
7.
least 7. Yeah.
So I'm missing, I think, the two prequels. But yeah.
Oh yeah. So you actually will be pretty surprised maybe at some of the stuff that's going on with Demerzel then.
I don't think so, because I'm familiar with the other name through the robot. Some of the other series, and yeah,
that's interesting. So yeah, like I think that is one of the biggest questions, and it's one of those things where it's a question if you know how the series ended. I think I don't want to get into this right now, what you were talking about there about how it might end in a different way. I agree with you. I'm not really sure, like but I don't have any idea how we could talk about that in like general terms.
Right. Yeah,
that would be interesting to people just watching the show.
Yeah.
But like I think about that too, and so yeah, so this is Demerzel is a very compelling character, not just as someone who doesn't know what's going to happen, but even when you do, there's, like I said, there's a lot of different ways they could go with it, and I kind of think I have an idea, but it wouldn't make sense to say that here.
Right.
So
like what motivates a 10,000-year-old robot, that
right.
survived a Holocaust of her people and has had religious faith and has seen it. Like, yeah, what is the guiding principle there? What is her North Star?
So Jim, what about you? What was your big question so far as far as season 2? The mystery you're most interested in?
I really love a good like sci-fi mystery, like take some element of science fiction that couldn't really be done in our world and switch things up with that. And yeah, like Severance is one of my favorite shows right now because it does that. And this kind of comes back to my biggest question about the show, which is the missing potentially missing memories from both, from all of the Cleons, actually, except for the first one. Why is his memory so much bigger? Because, like Dusk, I'm kind of not buying the explanation that, well, he was special, and so he's just got, 3 times our memories.
Yeah, because I listened to your last podcast, and I think you brought it up there where you said you're talking about the different size. The thing that's interesting there is that the current Dusk, he is the same as previous Dusk. There's no real big difference there. So the issue isn't so much of like maybe Brother Day is erasing his memories, right? It's more of like why is the person that we've been based on, why do they have so much more? And that to me feels like they edited parts that they don't want to be a part of the clones, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's been a part of the plan from the start is the clones would not have all the information that first Cleon does.
Yeah. Do you have any idea what you think is going on there?
No, not yet. I'm looking forward to getting more information about that, but it's super intriguing.
Yeah, like I have an idea, but again, it's sort of in spoiler territory. What about you, Aaron? What do you think about the memory, about Cleon the First control of the memories?
I think that I don't know. I don't know what to think because I think it's compelling that the first Cleon could have different experiences because he wasn't cloistered in this imperial city, knowing with only his brother's sons, scions to kind of hang around with, and an immortal robot. Like I do buy. Like me and Jim laughed because we were joking on the feedback episode that is not out yet. That it'd be funny if it's just like his dating life is what's taking up all the the fact that he had he didn't just go to the Gossamer court whenever he got horny. He had to actually go out and impress a person. There's something like I don't know. And the other question, I guess, is this something that the first Cleon instituted? Is this something, going back to Our Lady Demerzel, is this something Demerzel's doing? Is this something that Day is withholding from his brothers, a special knowledge only to himself? I don't know. I also thought, like, now, while we're on the subject of this, did you find it really odd how Dawn and Dusk chose to, begin their conversation with the first Cleon? Like, I know they couldn't come out and just say, shit's really fucked. Day is only is like drifted 17.
Oh, you mean how they didn't bring up the idea that they're about the genetic drift?
Well, I mean, that makes sense. Like, if Cleon's going to lower the ceiling on them, but like, why wouldn't they mention the fact that like it's not that Day is deleting your memories that might get the goat of the first Cleon? Because I can see the first Cleon being like, I could see boxing myself out of certain decisions.
Okay,
but
yeah.
He's trying to end the genetic dynasty. Like, what about that?
That's true.
Was this part of your plan, Klingon the First? Like, no.
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember you saying that in your most recent podcast episode, and it is true. Like, they make it out like he has been taking too much power, but he is also trying to end Cleon's genetic dynasty, which was the whole reason that thing is there, like that you can go ask questions to, right?
Yeah. So I just thought it was really weird what and again, I understand that you probably can't lead with the fact that we're not even entirely you anymore, because you might be super mad about that. But also the stakes are not just like us throwing a little brother temper tantrum. Like he's trying to end the whole thing,
Yeah. Whenever I was watching that scene, I had it in the front of my head that they were trying not to like make him too worried or whatever, you know what I mean? Like they wanted to like throw this out there and get some validation for their point of view and a way to act on that, like to take that power back or whatever. But like,
right.
They were at the same time, they're trying to play it cool because they don't want him to know, that
they don't want the ceiling dropped on them.
That they're not really a genetic copy of him anymore.
Right.
So yeah, one of the things I liked about the way they brought this into the story too was the way that they had all these other all situations dealing with memories, and that was sort of that whole theme of that episode, right? Where you had Harry struggling with his memories about Rach, and that's the Mentalics messing with her. But then you also have, he has the secret. He's got a, I guess the indication is probably that. I mean, obviously Yana isn't in his life anymore. And he made that comment about the fact that, that the Prime Radiant was their only living child, which, that living part of that makes you wonder what happened there. But so I think that the idea of memories in general, as far as the story moves on as they're trying to build a future, there's obviously issues of memory, and the idea that you have to sort of remember, you have to even the bad stuff, you have to remember it so you don't repeat it, right? Whenever you're going through this 100-year process of creating a new empire. So a lot of fascinating stuff there. I think that is interesting. Like at first I was like, well, why do they really care about editing a little bit of memories here and there? And I thought the way that they used Rue to, kind of plant the seeds for Brother Dusk, because she didn't really, I don't know what you guys think. Maybe you can tell me, like, I don't know if she was really trying to do anything there, like as far as start that ball rolling. Like, what was your sense on that? Was Rue aware that she could maybe create a wedge there?
I felt like she was. I mean, with the way she's been behaving with Dawn, kind of being flirty and sort of, planting ideas in his head that, oh, maybe we should have got together instead of they. It feels like she is driving wedges into the three Cleons here between them.
And Rue is part of that, like her going, acting like, because to me, I think I got that fact that Rue has got all of her memories intact. Like the Dominion has the ability to restore the memories, and she has done that on her. And I wonder if that's going to be revealed to give them some sort of like secret advantage, like the fact that, although Dusk seemed like not afraid of anything that was going to be on that tape. He thought he was just like, and he doesn't seem like much of a political player now that we know. He was just kind of like a playboy. So
yeah, that's the impression.
But definitely, they are trying to plant something. Trying to get that, that sand particle irritant in the oyster that'll make the pearl. They're putting that in his mind so that he's gonna have to turn it over and over. And the fact that I thought it was interesting that he was comforted by the idea that you should, like if you get your tooth pulled, you wake up and your tongue is like really just probes that area. And it's like really like that your mind would have some way to detect that there was an absence. And he'd always kind of assumed that, I just know if someone took my memory. And Rue denying him that is what sent him into overdrive, his paranoia in overdrive.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a general strategy of let's try to separate these people. That's one of the things that's available to them now that wouldn't have been before the genetic drift, is that the whole point of the Cleonic dynasty is that they're the same person, they're of the same mind. And even though they have those individual, tendencies that they go one way or the other on, the most important thing to them, and that's what Cleon the First said too, was that to envy Day is to envy yourself. That doesn't exist with these three right now because of the genetic drift, and so it's a smart strategy by Cloud Dominion to just try to find any way that they can get them to work against each other, right? Because otherwise, they don't really have much of a chance of doing much against the Empire.
You said something, Aaron, about Dominion's ability to remove memories from people and restore memories.
Yeah.
Or restore memories. Did they have the ability to also remove them? I assume because they're doing that with Markley, right?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how they phrased it, but they seem very confident that they can get around any Imperial memory audit, which means they have to be able to reverse the erasal, to erase stuff, to change stuff.
I wonder
I
what
think so.
kind of process that is, because we don't ever see it with Markley, but we assume they're doing it because they said they're going to. How involved is that? Is that something like they can, hit you with the light and you forget, like a Men in Black kind of thing? Do they have to have a chamber where they put you in? I'm just wondering how they've planted the idea that they can restore these memories pretty firmly, but they haven't really played with the idea that maybe they could be the source of some memory
And I don't think it'd
removal
be
on
like
people who
it can't be
haven't
super
explicitly
traumatic
said it
either.
yet.
It can't be super traumatic because, like she said, that like, because who knows, she could
Exactly.
be lying to dust for some purpose. But she mentioned that, like, I remember me putting my hand out, you taking my hand, and the next thing I remember, I was on a shuttle going off world loaded with cash. So it's like, there's not like, well, I didn't went to a procedure and I woke up with a bandage on my head, and it does seem like it's more of the Men in Black, flashy kind of thing.
Yeah, I just wonder how sneaky they can be with that. Have we seen
do you even
people
know
who've
like,
already been wiped and don't know it, right?
Right. Or you stare in the mirror, or they hit you with the light in the bathroom or something like that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I was wondering about, was that they thought of this as an advantage when they came, like when they were strategizing, like, we have to go see this guy, he wants to marry you, there's not really a way around that. So when they went there, they thought about everything that they had in their arsenal, the way that they could at least balance the scales a little bit. And this idea of what happened to her memory was in, that's one of their tools that they have. So yeah, I'm wondering too, listening to you guys talk, I'm wondering if they had something in mind when they came there on how they might, use that to their advantage to wipe some people's memories here. And like, if they did some things, then they could make you forget that they did it right in front of you. That would be a pretty powerful tool to have in your toolbox.
And as an audience member, like, distract you from the thing. Like, say, okay, we're focus all of our attention over here on this way that they could manipulate people, but in fact be doing something over here. I'm looking for the sleight of hand, honestly.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm gonna get into mine. I just wanted to go through these super chats real quick. Real Anarchy, thank you for the $4.99. Love the channel. Great interview with Hugh Howey. Foundation season 2 has been stellar. Keep up the great work. Yeah, thanks. I'm glad that you liked the interview with Hugh. Jim and Aaron are going to be doing an interview with David S. Goyer on their podcast really soon, and I might be having him on the channel too before the end of the season, so look out for that. And the other one here is from Dan. Thank you for the $4.99. He's talking about LRH, which is L. Ron Hubbard, I believe, right?
Oh yeah.
Fancied himself
my great grandfather.
Yeah. Fancied himself a Harry Seldon-like person, psychohistory, Dianetics, being a prophet, etc. So what are your thoughts on that? This is directly to you guys.
I mean, in real life, I think there's enough evidence that said that Hubbard deliberately constructed the religion. I don't think that he personally believed any of this shit. I don't think he saw himself as I think he saw himself as a con man that was going to keep himself supplied with money and pussy the rest of his life, and he did that admirably. And now it's just kind of shambling on beyond his control. But if I want to go with, like, I don't know, like a pulpy science fiction alternate history version of Worth, sure. Because like clearly a lot of the stuff in Dianetics and, well, I don't know. I actually, as someone who I've actually read a weird amount of L. Ron Hubbard. Those goddamn Scientologists will keep a small town library like Mooresville stocked with every science fiction book he's ever written. You might not be able to find book 3 of the Foundation series, but you will be able to find all 10 books of the Mission of Earth series. You'll be able to find, the fucking Barry Peppers movie. What was that one with John Travolta?
Battlefield Earth.
Battlefield Earth. You'll be able to find all that shit.
I've actually never read any. I know he wrote more sci-fi books than pretty much any. Like, he wrote like a ridiculous amount, but I've never read any of them.
I mean, his, like, L. Ron Hubbard's work is like pretty, I'd say, anti-intellectual. It's like a lot of like anti kind of science, anti-psychology. like I said, I think Dianetics is a lot more like hokey religion, and psychohistory is more of like an attempt to do a rigorous kind of deterministic science look at the universe. But I guess, so no, I guess I don't feel like that's much of the case, but I'm just one person.
Yeah, my surface level take on it was that he wanted to start a church because he wanted the tax free status, and I don't know though. There was in the last episode that we saw Dr. Seldon, in the vault, Harry. He said, the way that he was carrying himself there, I think that was part of Scientology's shtick in the beginning. Was that, hey, we can solve your problems, and there was sort of he did sort of have a prophet role early on, I guess, maybe. That was similar to that. And then you think of the other Harry saying, people do like to kneel. I think that's a lot more of it, is that he just saw that as he saw that as a way where he could line his
Asimov wrote the story about a guy that accidentally made a cult that like saved the galaxy, and L. Ron Hubbard just like wanted to make a fan fiction version of that. He actually tried to do it in real life. He LARPed a little too close to the sun.
Yeah. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Jim?
No.
Yeah. I have one other one here, and this is a question. So can we all thank you, Luna Cascade, for the 5. Can you please all share your thoughts on the genetic, it says genic, but I think it's genetic drift and its implications. No spoilers, please. I mean, I think this is a pretty straightforward device to just say, hey, look, these characters, they have their own, like, I think in the first episode of the season, right, Day just comes out and says it. He says, I feel like an individual, or I forget how he worded it exactly, but that was the thing, right? Is that the genetic drift, I'm not sure, that I guess it could over time, like, produce some really weird Cleons, but I think generally speaking that they just lose that idea that they are all the same man. And whenever that happens, that undermines what makes this an effective form of replacing the ruler, like the succession, part of one of the main reasons you do this is so you don't have crises of succession. And we see that already, 130 years later, with Brother Dave thinking about getting married to Queen Sareth and having an heir and just ending the whole thing.
Yeah, and if the strength of the Empire comes from them being one man, then, breaking that apart is accomplishing the mission of destroying the Empire, effectively.
And it also just gives a time limit. Like, last season you could be forgiven thinking that the Empire could just keep on doing what they're doing, and we'll see if Harry's right. But now it's like they can't kind of stand pat. Like if they I thought that was a great exchange, I think, in the first or second episode where the brothers are debating, and the Day's like, it's if you're going down the rapids, you can't just wait until you're swallowed up. And Dusk is like, I'm not sure steering right to him as the course. But like, it's the idea is like, you can't, there is no future in which the Empire can just remain as they are forever unchanging. That is off the table. And now, so I don't think there's anything, and like Jim says, like, I think we joked to Goyer last year. It's like, I can't wait till season 5 and Lee Pace is in his hunchback costume with a third arm, and he's got an improbable number of eyes and not enough teeth, and like
they've hired Willem Dafoe to play Brother Dusk. Yeah.
How far are we going to drift in this? In this, I don't know, but like I don't know that it's anything more than just it's a crisis for the Empire, right? Just like the Foundation has crisis, it's a crisis for them to navigate, and they're going to do it poorly, and it's going to lose them another 10% of the galaxy.
Another thing I was thinking about whenever I was listening to your podcast was that this is, you brought up the idea of like, whenever you do if Day goes through with his plan, he impregnates and has an heir, with Sareth, you do kind of have to kill the other heirs, right? Like the other potential heirs, because I mean, when you have the genetic dynasty, you had this consistency, so there was really no advantage to any of them kind of backstabbing each other or anything like that. But you brought up the idea of like there's going to be other political interests involved, that are going to be pushing to say like, look, they have this kid, and now this kid's a mess. We need to go back to we have Brother Don sitting right over there.
He still looks pretty good. Looks just like Cleon the First. Let's try him again. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that I don't think that that's really hit the characters and because it's still kind of a developing situation, but Sarah having her hooks in Brother Don should be a really smart move on her part, because he does have a lot to lose there. Okay, so my biggest question, I guess, to get back to that, is that this Callie character that showed up in whenever they went to Una's world, and this body that Harry has. I mean, I think that it's pretty well established now that it's a clone. It's a real body. It's his body. It's based off of his genetic material. They had they had 138 years, so there's no problem in growing that over that time and having that ready. But it's just like, who is this character? Like there was a short period of time where it was like presenting itself as the prime radiant, and maybe the completion of his work. And I think that even before the last episode, but I think they kind of confirmed that in the last episode that this is probably a robot. And so whenever you go back and you think, well, can Demerzel's the only robot we know, so can Demerzel be in two places? We have this idea of her intelligence being distributed, like not being, whenever her head was cut in half, there was this idea that she could pull back her memory or whatever. It wasn't a big problem. So you have
how
that
distributed is that consciousness, and by the way,
right? So because I think there's two I think what's interesting about it story wise is there's two things. Like, you don't want to get into a situation where everyone can be a robot, right? Like if there's just Demerzel, then that's pretty easy, right? Because if something robotic happens, then who did it or whatever. But if you get into like that Westworld thing, like who's a host and who's not a host, like you don't really want to go down that road too far, right? If everyone can be a robot, then that gets weird. But on the flip side of that, then you also have, well, if Demerzel can be one place, why can't she be all the places, right? So I don't know. What do you guys? How you guys think that Calais is a robot, and do you think that indicates that this is something related directly to Demerzel, or possibly something that they're introducing that would be another robot that's left over, and what that might mean for the story?
So I thought you laid out a pretty compelling case for her being a robot, Calais being a robot, in your video. The way that the mining droids react to her on Una's world, that makes a lot of sense. The fact that she is physical, you can touch her, Gaal did. And yet she isn't treated as a human by those mining droids. Pretty compelling. I have some extrapolation to do, but I might let you guys talk about that theory a little bit more, because I want to introduce another robot possibility.
Okay.
Well, it's funny because like I don't have an opinion in the Calais stuff. I do think that the important part is she's a deliberate mystery. They show you a pure digital consciousness that doesn't leave sand marks on the sand. You can pass your hands through them. They're not detected on life sensors. You got a fully human that is all of those things that can be detected, and then you've got Calais, which is a physical object, but she doesn't show up on bioscanners. So I just like, she's something else. I don't know if I wouldn't think she is just a robot. Although you do mention like Demerzel apparently is a complete stealth robot too. Like unless you slice her head open, like She apparently passes any kind of cursory scan. There's nothing that jumps out, I'm a robot, to her. So
yeah, Sareth and Rue and they seem legitimately surprised to find that out in the last episode.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I think that the important part is that she's just she's not fully human and she's not fully robot. She's something else. And I imagine we'll explore what that is. But like, I think it's, we mentioned Westworld just now. It's something I have in mind to ask Mr. Goyer when we talk about it tomorrow. That, like, what it's been our observation, me and Jim's, that when you have series that, the more mechanisms there can be for people to come back from the dead, for people to take on shape shifting and be other people, to swap brains and cortical stacks or whatever kind of science fiction bullshit. It comes at a cost to your investment, because it's just not, it's like, well, shit, death is bad, right? That'd make me really sad if my wife or my husband or my daughter or whatever died. But if I can take like their quarter chip out of their neck and put it into another body and they're alive again, I don't know. Is that even so bad? Is that like getting plasma? I don't know. So like, I think those are things that the showrunners of Foundation have to be cognizant of. If you've got cloning and matter to energy, memory, engram transformation, if you've got robots indistinguishable from humans, if death is just a minor inconvenience that can be, overcome at any distance and any time, those are some real barriers. Just you can still make compelling stories about that. It's just a hell of a lot more challenging, and you gotta be really careful, especially in television. So I think that he's, like I said, Goyer's been around the block for a while. He's been writing stuff for a long time at all different types. I think he's aware of that, but it is a concern.
Yeah, I mean, you said you had something else. You had an alternate theory, Jim. What was it?
Well, it's kind of an add-on theory.
Okay.
Let me just throw this grenade out there. Harry Seldon's a robot now. He's not actually a human. He's one of those indistinguishable robots. And there's a case to be made for this, because if you look at the way he interacts with some of the things they say when he first interacts with Calais in the Prime Radiant, he asks something that she replies like, my goal, my investment is in humanity's destiny, not humanity's survival.
Yeah,
and he takes note of that.
He
right?
points
He's like,
that out real quick.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like she is trying perhaps to evolve humanity in a way, and that this is an attempt, and that Harry seems human because that's the Harry we knew before, and this looks a lot like the Harry we knew before, but maybe he's actually whatever she is, or some hybrid between human and whatever she is.
Well, here's an interesting question. Do you think if Demerzel herself is on Una's world, the ship would pick her up on its scanners? You'd have to think.
I don't know.
You'd have to think that she would, though, right? I mean, because that wouldn't be a very good job of being stealth if you didn't show up as a human being.
That's what I'm talking about. And she goes off planet all the time she's got to be running through scanners all the time.
Yeah. So Harry could be something that's more like her, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
A totally human passing robot.
And the latest, so I talk about this also in our podcast coming up on Friday, some feedback stuff. But you look at the latest official podcast where I think they had Lou LaBelle on, and she was talking about some of the weaknesses or some of the strengths of being human as compared to what Harry was before, which is an AI construct. And one of those strengths is he can locomote himself, right? He doesn't need Gaal to carry him out to some cave where he can meet Calais. He could have done it himself. So there are some strengths to the human form that maybe the digital form can't reach. But what if you could synthesize those into one? Maybe you'd have the best of both worlds. Because it's a lot harder to kill a digital consciousness too.
Yeah. That does that opens some interesting possibilities going forward too, based on what actually happens in Asimov's.
Have you thought about what Goyer said vis-a-vis the copies of Harry's left in mediums that he's been in and the potential multiplication of Harry's?
Yeah, it kind of just breaks my head a little bit though whenever I do it. You know what I mean? Like I think it's the same kind of situation, right? Like I hope that I like that idea. I like that there could be more, because that's one of the things that I find interesting about Calais is that she took control of his consciousness first, and then she put it into this body, and then he woke up and he doesn't remember what happened, right? We were talking about memories before. That's a memory he doesn't have and he doesn't understand. So we don't really know that, like on the one hand, that it's exactly Harry the way that he walked into that cave. We don't know if she made a copy of him. We don't know if she edited, anything that's related to what they're dealing with right now. So yeah, it does open a lot of doors, but it's also kind of crazy, right? Because, you could have 10 Harrys in the same room at one point.
Yeah. And I think there
might a Harry fight like in the Matrix,
because I do think they are like the second foundation. I do think they are leading up to a showdown of the Harrys. The fact that like one is being the very pompous Dr. Seldon, the other's more Harry. One's human, one's going to be a artificial construct. It seems like they're going to set these people, these individuals up for opposition. And you could see the pompous Dr. Seldon robot thinking that he is so much more superior to the encased in meat, Harry. I just think they're doing some interesting things. And if there could be other versions of Harry that are still in, the knife hilt, for example, or there's still one that's that went to Helicon and is with the original. What was that? The crow? I forget what the raven. I think that would be kind of cool to a point, because it's all like subject to the other stuff we talked about. Like if there's too many Harrys, then who cares what happens to any one of them? And how can you possibly get to know them all? How can you differentiate them? But 3 or 4 Harrys with some, tangible, physical, mental differences and vulnerabilities. I think that would be pretty dope.
Yeah. Well, here's something I definitely wanted to ask you guys coming in here, because I see a lot of I in my comments and stuff like that. I see a lot of people talking about this as if the two Harrys are the same, and I was just wondering about like people making that assumption, which is not one that I make at all whenever I think about this. So if you think about how this played out, right? Harry decided that he needed to die because to set things in motion the way that he wanted. The idea was for the consciousness that he saved to go in Rachel's knife and with him to go build the second foundation, right? So the messed up Harry, the one that is in the body now, that was sort of the prime Harry, right? Because even though his body was in his consciousness was in the casket that went to become the vault, that was something that the other one had control of, right? Like that was like the package, and that the main character, the main Harry, was sending. So like when you think of these two Harrys, do you think of them on equal terms? Or because I kind of think of Harry in the vault as the first foundation version that the second foundation person put there for a purpose. Like he feels more like a pawn of the other one,
For sure.
The
and
vault
there's
the pawn.
Memory manipulation going on, because I mean you can't really manipulate Dr. Seldon as Harry if Dr. Seldon knows your plan is to manipulate him.
And that's also a very interesting thing that they're doing. It seems like a lot of things they're doing this season with parallels the Empire. The fact that Harry is now, a physical copy. He's a AI copy. He lived, he died again. It's the same Harry. They're doing a lot of the fact that he might be editing, memories, like we're saying, and messing with that stuff. They are doing a lot of straight line comparison between what Harry is doing with the foundations and what the Empire is doing with their genetic dynasty. I think that's another thing that's kind of interesting to see where they go with that.
Yeah, because I'll see comments of like, this Harry in the vault, he's this or he's that, and it's like, yeah, but he's really just a prop of the other one, right? Like his confidence about like you see that confidence about him was what kind of made him a fun character, right? Was that he came out and he's like, oh, he kind of breaks the director's balls. He doesn't really listen to anything he says and says, oh, nice suit, and it's just sort of cracking jokes and just playing into the whole religious aspect, but not taking it seriously. But at the same time, whenever you think about it, that's just an extension of what the first foundation needs, is someone like that to sit there and guide it through the thing. It's like, because in the book, the actual Harry is in the vault, but it's only a recording, right? So he comes out and he basically pats them on the back for doing the right thing in the current crisis. This is a different situation where there's some active, like, this guy's playing the role of prophet, of Messiah, but I think that he's kind of a puppet, where the other one's really pulling the strings.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so that's good, because like I said, you see a lot of different comments and things that they keep talking. I keep thinking like people are interpreting as like this is the real Harry, and the one that's corrupted over here is something different. But I think it's the other way around.
It's also very interesting the different, like, Gaal and Salvor, and to what extent they know which Harry. And which touchstone they had first. I think that's another interesting difference too, and I think they will play with that before the season's over.
What did you think of that comment whenever he said he knew Hober Mallow because of a ghost? I forget what the exact phrase he used was, but he said like a ghost stopped by and told him, or something like that. Because they sort of introduced this idea of the prime radiant being in two places at once, but didn't really get into how that works.
It's the other Harry.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Do you think it's like
he can do that? He says he uses it more as like a crystal ball and just to see what the other Harry's doing, but he could potentially communicate something.
Yeah, that's I'm not really sure, because I mean, it doesn't make sense for him to know about an individual, and they went through pretty good lengths of, showing that the people in Terminus were like, that's not how this works. Like, why is he asking for one person? Like, that's not how psychohistory works at all.
But I also think that's, I mean, there's some feedback on that too. I think that's kind of like reductive, that like, just because it says Hober Mallow doesn't mean Hober Mallow is important as an individual. It just means that he's at the top of the Rolodex of people who have the highest percentage. You know what I'm saying? Like there might be a million names behind Hober Mallow. It's just that's the one they asked for first. Like even Harry, like that's the thing. It's like people are like, whoa, I didn't think people were important to psychohistory. It's like, well, even Harry Seldon he has said himself at a large enough distances, I'm not important. Like if I hadn't invented psychohistory, someone around the time that I did would have. It would be an inevitable, I think, is what he would say. So, like, I think people get a little too caught up in the individuality of Hober Mallow, when the reality could have been a billion people could have been Hober Mallow.
Yeah, well, I think that's more to the point, right? Is that's why it's surprising, is because it's just, why does he know that specific name? But it's not a big deal. It's not as much of a big deal because, like, I mean, when people say, psychohistory is not about individuals, like, that's true. In the first book, especially, but by the second book, individuals become very important, and that's sort of the point. You know what I mean? So it's like that. Asimov had it both ways, when it comes to that too.
And we're already at that stage with the show, right? I mean, Gaal and Raish were extremely important individuals. They derailed the whole plan. We saw psychohistory go off into the red zone, right? And
in reality, that would happen in Asimov's version of psychohistory too. I mean, individuals, like, things hinge on the actions of individuals. Like, somebody blew up the Star Bridge, right? That's an individual act. I mean, obviously there's other things involved there, but that changed the course of history when it happened. You know what I mean? So it's sort of a point of perspective of, like, it doesn't mean when you subscribe to psychohistory, doesn't mean that you just sit on your hands and nobody does anything and then everything works out the way it's supposed to. There's still, things still happen on an individual level. It's just that it can't predict that. Right. And, so when you get into this idea of the prime radiant, you guys were talking about this a little bit in the last conversation I heard. It's just a model, right? It just has a model of what it predicts is going to happen based on the inputs, like a lot of inputs and a lot of math. So, if Harry is looking at that, or Gaal and Salvor are looking at, and they see all these things there, it's not set in stone that that's going to happen. That's what's going to happen if nothing changes. Right. So,
and they're actively also talking about putting their thumbs on the scales to make things happen, or at least,
and that's what
explains is like you have teeny tiny impacts at very distant removes to get big results over the scope of time. That
is the, that's the thing that's going on with, like what they're doing, like what the foundation is doing is they are trying to alter the course of the future by, changing things up so that it'll get a different result than this 30,000 years of barbarism. Right. And that's one of the other things that really has me excited about this season is the way that they're playing with this idea of inevitability. That kind of, I guess the big example of this is with Gaal having her vision and knowing that, that Salvor is supposed to die in 150 years. It's interesting because it goes across so many of the different storylines, right? Like, if you think about the genetic dynasty, like from the very beginning, we've known that if Harry is right, that they're going to fall. You know what I mean? That if they don't change things and they don't create the foundation and then now this other second foundation, then they're going to, things are going to get really bad for everybody for a really long time. So you have all these different things that are going to happen. And then it has that whole idea of like, well, what do you do when you know that something's inevitable? How do you deal with that? So one of the big things I think of is this vision that she has of the mule. And, in that one little vision, she's seen that there is apparently a second foundation that exists. It does seem like the people on Ignis will be involved with that since he's the one that gave her that name. Right. So you have all this stuff that
he says they're her Mentalics, implying that she has taken control over them.
Right. So you have all these things that seem like they're going to happen in a deterministic way. How does that get to be exciting to watch as that plays out? There's a lot of fun stuff there.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how that works out myself.
Because at the end of the episode and episode 5, I got the sense that Talonbon's point is that it's really just not their fight. Like it's that they got this little place. It's pretty tight. You know what I mean? They can hang out in this old summer palace and just call other people like them to just come there and be safe. And maybe that's all that they really want to do. You know what I mean? Like maybe go into war with Empire. It just doesn't sound that great whenever you have something
right.
when you got this cool little planet all to yourself and nobody's really bothering you because you just sort of don't let them come there,
Harry Seldon has a way of upsetting the status quo. I'll say that.
True.
Yeah. I think, they're telling us that that's going to work out one way or the other. I'm curious to see how the twists and turns come in that particular one, because she does seem kind of like a bad guy a little bit. Just that whole, I'm going to break the thing and there's not going to be I'm going to break the prime radiant. There's not going to be a second foundation. But I do think
she's a
like I
bad guy
said,
like Magneto. Like Magneto's a bad guy where it's like I don't agree with her methods, or like it seems like she's really racist, speciest against non-mentalics.
yeah.
But like you understand where she got to where she's at. She lives in a galaxy who is going to persecute and try to kill people like her, and she's protected all these young people. There's big asterisks with that. I've got some crazy theories about that, but like, yeah, it's like Magneto. It's like, well, okay, yeah, he wants to kill all humans, or at least enslave them, protect them, to protect me. But like, he grew up in a concentration camp. He's seen what humanity can do when they go running off into the deep end, off the cliff. So I think that as abhorrent to some of the things that Tellenbaum had said in terms of like, I'm not a psychic person, so I took an offense at what she was saying. I can see she's not just like power hungry or evil, or it's like she has a very real threat that she wants to protect her people from, and she's gotten a little too mama bear about it. It seems like.
Yeah. I think that's the sense that I got too. So we know that I think it's, even if you never read the book, you just saw exactly what has been on the TV show so far. It's pretty evident why the second foundation needs to exist, right? Gaal sort of has to make up for that. Like she had a chance to do that whenever she was on the Raven, and she just decided to go back to Synax instead, you know what I mean? Just sort of peace out and be done with it. So yeah, I'm curious to see how they twist things around there. And I mean, what do you think the chances are that this wedding on Trantor actually happens, and then like we have an empress from now on in like the future seasons?
I think a marriage is going to absolutely happen. I just think it's going to have the Reigns of Castamere playing it at some point. Like it's going to it's going to be one of them exciting weddings that you see in sci-fi fantasy every once in a while.
Yeah, I there's a couple of things like that. Like, I mean, the inevitability is that the Cleons are not going to be in charge of. They're not going to be sitting on that throne for the entirety of the series. They're also the most popular part of it, which is makes for.
I do wonder if his plan is to do the Hunchback Quasimodo version of the Cleonic dynasty throughout all, because it sounds like he's rounding to a 5-season arc for this show, and in the interviews I've seen him give. Or are they going to? Yeah, like because it would be scary for me if I was Goyer to put the kibosh on the genetic dynasty, because they are so fascinating, and Lee Pace is so magnetic. Like who do you get as a primary antagonist that matches up to the three of them, let alone to just Lee Pace, 6'6" naked majesty? I mean, I don't know. It's literally a tall order. So I kind of hope they find a way to just keep hammering that genetic dynasty into weirder and weirder shapes.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I mean, if I think about it, if I just the Empire does have to fall, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the Cleons have to disappear from the story completely.
True.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean,
do we see, like, if Trantor gets sacked, like in a Fall of Rome kind of way, do we see the Cleons in like Byzantine, like whatever kind of like eastern half of the empire they're able to hold, just kind of like, scrapping for influence? Like I said, I don't need a lot, but I would be sad to see them go.
Yeah, absolutely. And Demerzel especially, like the whole wild card situation that goes on there with her behind the scenes is something that would, if it was gone, you'd have to replace it with something major. So I guess we can. I know you guys both have places to be, so we can start to wind it up here. is there anything, Aaron, that we didn't touch on that you'd like to get to before we go out?
No, I guess I'm just pleased that it seems like when I don't know whether the people who were just not on board with the project have dropped off, or whether the show has improved enough. But I really am enjoying watching the fan community kind of enjoy it. Like, you know, from like relatively purist Asimov fans to like people that are just watching the show. I look at Reddit, I look at some of the forums, look at our community, and like there's a lot more kind of universal, just kind of like just enjoying the show for what it is than, you know, not being a slavish, you know, production of Asimov's original books, which I in that one of the things I thought was cool in that interview that Goyer gave on r/television is he had a direct quote from Asimov, who had taken 30 years off from writing the Foundation books as he sat, to write the sequels and the prequels. He's like, yeah, I'm going to go back and read my trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of get back into the saddle. And he's like, I kept on reading and like, surely something's going to happen. And first one book went down, then two, I finished the whole trilogy. He's like, oh my God, it's just been people sitting around and philosophizing. How is there no inciting action? And so like, I think Asimov himself, if he sat down to remake this as a cohesive whole and not just Hail Mary, magnum opus connection to everything, at that very late in his career, he obviously would have done things different. So like, I like that people are, over the fact that this is not Foundation that was written in the 1960s, and it is a Foundation that's been updated for today with some really clever devices in terms of Harry's and the Cleons and all that to maintain continuity of characters. And I don't know what's going to be like if Gaal and Salvor have to get into cryo beds at the end of every season just so they can have a continuity and protagonist. But like, so far, not only is it succeeding, it's exceeded what it set out to do in season 1. So yeah, I just like, that's the one thing is I like seeing everybody like this show.
Yeah, it has been, like I said, I was surprised at how much I have been enjoying breaking it down this time. And that does actually add to that a lot is, the people who are watching right now, they do seem to be enjoying the same things. And there's a little bit less whining about, that was pretty pervasive in the first season. What about you, Jim? Well, one thing about that, what you were just saying though, is go ahead, Jim. Why don't you tell me if there's anything else that you wanted to get into?
I'm going to keep agitating for this everywhere that I can because I'm a big fan of it. Let's get some Foundation merch out there. Lack of merch is probably what did in The Expanse. I think Goyer, when I talk to him, I'm going to agitate for it. We're gonna see if we can make this happen. Shirts, models, all kinds of things.
These app streaming services need to get on the merch wagon, man. We need I want to be able to buy a posable Lee Pace Cleon figure,
with removable armor, of course.
Hell
of course,
yeah,
that's what you want.
One is like blue collar and his blue dress and his gold shield and
sliding head Demerzel. That's what I want. Yeah,
you can pose him in his bedroom.
Action.
Pose him in his bedroom with the robe open a little bit, trying to look totally.
I love
the bedroom action set.
I love how they like Lee Pace walking around in an open robe, but I also like that they don't like putting the silly putty in their belly buttons when they remember that they don't have belly buttons. So there's always a piece of like tape that strategically is keeping that robe just closed enough you can't see his belly button.
Yeah. I was just thinking about how funny that was in the last, in that romantic interlude in the bedroom that didn't go the way it was supposed to. The way he's just sitting there, he's supposed to look like, you could tell he's trying to look like what he expects. That he has really no experience, right? So. Right. He's been going with Demerzel all this time, and she does everything in a Demerzel way to make him basically think that he's the maestro or whatever. And when he was sitting there, they sort of like, this is what a guy does whenever he's, just kicking back in his room, entertaining his lady friend, right? You just sort of sit here like this. And it was so funny to me, like the way that he's really like, I mean, obviously people, it's not a secret that he's very good in this role, but part of the whole dynamic of having him play different people and all of them, you know what I mean? The same goes for Dawn and Dusk, is the amount of fun they can have just changing little things that you won't notice because, visually you're saying, okay, that's Brother Day. But then there's the other layer of like, is this 16 or 17 or 13, right? They really did. I've been making a video about it. It'll be coming out in like the next day or two about the dynasty. And they really like, I don't know if they even appreciated how many options they presented themselves whenever they decided to go this route with this, just as a way to solve a problem, so that they could have the same actor season after season. Just a fantastic choice there.
It must have been fun in the writing room when they discover, like, oh my God, we could do this,
Yeah, and the new characters too. I mean, I really kind of I kind of like this Brother Constant and Polly Verisov and Hober Mallow. Like these characters they're pretty good in a way that I don't think the side characters were in the first season. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I'm with you for sure. I'm really enjoying Hober.
Old man Polly, Brother Constant, Hober Mallow. Like, I don't know where they keep coming up with these like really charming, charismatic individuals, but they knock that apart with those two.
A lot of I mean, Bel Rios, like there's a lot of we don't really have time to go into all of it, but I have a pretty good idea what they're doing with his character based on the book and having his partner be there with him. Like there's a lot of fascinating stuff I think they'll be able to do there. But yeah, I mean, I think that it was pretty heavy-handed, the whole thing with Constant and Hober. There's definitely the idea that they might get back together, something
for sure.
And I guess I can't really say anything about that either because there is something in the book that's probably related to. But what about you, Jim? Yeah, Jim. Okay. What you don't remember that at all, Aaron?
No. Like, again, I read these books when I was like from 13 to 15. So long ago. So long ago.
So I guess the popular idea is that maybe these are the parents of the mule. Have you seen that out there? That idea?
That the what now?
That Brother Constant, and because Brother Constant has the Thespian eyes, right? I've seen a lot of people. Yeah, so I've seen a lot of people in my comments of my videos saying that they think that these two are the parents of the mule because of those blue eyes.
The only reason I'm blue screening is I had a competing theory that somehow Hugo was going to have a kid with Salvor.
Those eyes, you know what I mean?
When he came back, and the Mentalics tricked Salvor like that, I was like, oh hell yeah, or back the blue-eyed baby's back on the table. But no, I guess that I wanted Salvor or Gaal involved because they have that like genetic kind of metallic kind of origin. But like now that we've seen there's a whole planet full of them, I guess I feel myself jumping on board the Hober Constant baby bandwagon. I'm liking that. I'm on board the mule bandwagon for those two.
Yeah, Christina J says in the comments there that the mule seemed to have blue, not Thespian blue eyes, right? And I wasn't really sure about that. I
think they were pretty Thespian blue, right?
I wasn't really sure about that. I went back and looked, and I couldn't really say. Like they definitely have this glowing blue color, but I didn't know if that was.
like Dune Spice Navigator looking eyes, I thought. But I could be wrong, but like I definitely was hanging a theory on that, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think if just objectively, like just with no, nothing else involved, I mean, it would make more sense because they are Mentalics, like you pointed out, for one of the Mentalics to be involved. So far, we haven't seen anything with Hubbard or Constant to make you think that would be the case. That blue eye thing is just it's not a really strong. I mean, it's definitely a marker, but I wouldn't say
Take
it's
a look
strong...
at this, Pete. I just threw an image in our private chat here. Like, if those aren't Thespin blue, I don't know. That's not a natural shade of human blue that I've ever seen.
Oh yeah.
I'll throw it up in the public chat for everybody to. I report, you decide. It's in the YouTube chat if you want to check it out.
Huh. So let's see.
I do have to be getting out of here though.
Yeah. I was gonna say, if you need to go, Jim, are you on the way out right now too, or you have a couple more minutes?
Yeah, I gotta head out.
Well, I still got 20 more minutes of Blade to watch, so you got.
I got 2 hours of Blade to watch.
Physically can't start watching Blade till I finish. So.
Right. So okay. So why don't you guys? We'll just wrap it up then. Why don't you guys do your plugs and
you took
we'll do this.
Jim. You want us?
We'll try to do this again at the end of the season for sure.
For sure.
So.
We're Jim and I are at set up shop at baldmove.com. We talk about your favorite television and movies. Right now we're in the middle of Foundation. We just wrapped up Star Trek Strange New Worlds. It's another great science fiction show. We're also watching Justified City Primeval right now. We're about to get on board the Daryl Dixon spinoff of The Walking Dead. What's the other? God, I keep forgetting. There's one other thing. Loki. 2. Yeah, getting back on the Marvel wagon in Loki season 2. I'm excited to see where they go with that. And we're just doing stuff all the time. Check us out. We're at Bald Move everywhere in social media, except for TikTok. We're at Baldest Move there. We're a hoot. You should follow us.
You guys are really doing the Daryl Dixon thing, huh?
Yeah. Walking Dead is pretty popular. Are you familiar with
this?
And a lot of fun.
Sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah.
11 seasons of cost sunk. What's another 6 episodes? There's a strike on. What else are we gonna do?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I heard you say that the other day, and I was like, because I've been looking, and I don't know what I'm doing next. Like it's a little bit of a tough time at the moment. Yeah. It would be. I luckily for myself, I didn't follow that the whole way through, so I wouldn't even really be able to walk into that. I kind of see where you're going, it kind of makes sense, I guess. But
I had another professional critic friend of ours DM me the other day. He's seen screeners and he said it's actually better than he thought it would be. So that doesn't mean it's great, but it does mean it exceeded at least one person's expectations. So I'm curious to see old Daryl rowing his way across the Atlantic to set up zombie shopping for Paris, France. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll let you guys go. Loki season 2. I mean, I don't watch much Marvel at all, but I did.
You were in the Loki season 1, weren't you? Because did I not see a video or two that you did on that? Or
no, I didn't cover it. Okay. I didn't cover it, but I did watch it. And I did find some things that I liked about it. So yeah, I'll probably be watching season 2. I'll probably get into it.
Well, Luna, the good news is we have a legion of fans that just listen to the podcast and don't watch the show anymore. And apparently it's an enjoyable experience because we're not exactly singing the show's praises at this point. Every once in a while they'll do something by accident that's cool. But mostly we're there to have a good time, getting the people's elbow warmed up for the show,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming on. Like I said, we'll do this again. We'll definitely be talking about the show as it goes forward. And thanks for everyone who showed up. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll do another. Like I said, I'll be doing this for sure at the end. I'll be trying to do something with David Goyer if our schedules can match up before the end of the season. And who knows? Maybe maybe I'll do another one of these if another guest comes to mind that I want to have on here. But for now, we're gonna let these guys go. And so thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, always a pleasure, Pete. Thanks for having